mine? Could you be mine?
Okay, did you catch that? Is that the way you remember it?
No.
Okay, well, what if I told you that things you remember didn't happen exactly the way you remember them? See, that's something that a lot of people feel they're experiencing right now, and that's what we want to cover on a new aspect of our show, The Other Side, where we want to have a cup of coffee with E.T., we want to get a picture of a ghost, and we want to shake hands with the monster that's probably under your bed. So, you were a big fan of Mr. Rogers growing up.
Man, PBS was the bomb. From Sesame Street, Electric Company, and Mr. Rogers. For years, I sat there and I sung along, and I'm just mentally... I was really disturbed with some of these things we're going to talk about, because I remember the song going, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood." I'm sure Eddie Murphy even remembers in the Saturday Night Live clip, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood." But that's not what he ever said.
No, it's not what he said. And we're going to find there's lots of
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
other things where it's not as we thought it was. What's the explanation for this? By the way, what we're talking about, this is called the Mandela Effect.
This is all wrong. This is not the way it's supposed to be.
Named so because there are a lot of people that believed that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 80s, mostly due to a movie starring Danny Glover that was released in the 80s, I believe. They saw the movie. Yeah, they saw the movie with Danny Glover, figured, oh, movie about a famous person, he must have died. But yeah, so that's why it's called the Mandela Effect. And apparently it's stretched further. There's been a whole bunch of things that have gone up about it, and that's what we're here to talk about. So, beyond Mr. Rogers, what else is there?
Well, I stumbled across some of this research when I was researching something completely different than this, and then I remember seeing the post on, I think it was our Star Wars page, about Darth Vader.
Yes.
No, I am your father.
And the lines that we thought we heard that we didn't really hear. And I'd seen Empire Strikes Back millions of times. So anyways, I had ignored that video for a long time. Then I found that one. But then the one that really got me, and we'll go into Darth Vader in a second, was I specifically remember hearing in the movie Field of Dreams, "If you build it,
they will come."
But that's not what it says.
If you build it, he will come. If you build it, he will come.
Okay, so this is another movie that I've seen quite a few times, because I really enjoyed, I've always been in supernatural stuff, and I've always heard, if you build it, they will come. But it doesn't say that anymore.
No, it doesn't.
So in the Mandela Effect, which this isn't, they didn't really, this first time that I saw this introduced was Star Trek Next Generation. They don't call it Mandela Effect, but in that, Whoopi Goldberg's character kind of goes into, she's on the Starship Enterprise and she goes into another reality, and everything's different.
She must have some idea how things have changed.
I look at things, I look at people, and they just don't feel right.
What things? What people?
You.
That people she meets are different than she remembers them being, and certain things are just changed. And it's a great episode,
So, again, going back, the next one would have been obviously Darth Vader, where I always heard the line, and we've heard so many people say it so many times, Luke.
Yeah.
I am your father.
Yeah, he doesn't say that.
So,
he never said that.
I went home, and I've got an old VHS copy of Empire Strikes Back. And I'm like, oh, I know I'm right. And what I believed was George Lucas, because he changes things so much in his movies, he must have changed the dialogue in the movie. And I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And I slapped the damn tape in there, and he says this.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
When I first saw the dialogue that said, Luke, I am your father, I said to myself, he's lying. I wonder how they're gonna play that lie out.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
And I was disturbed.
Yeah. I wasn't, because I don't believe he ever said, Luke, I am your father. I think this one, along with many other things that we will get into, I believe it has a logical explanation. The logical explanation for Luke, I am your father, is how many times has that line been parodied? You've seen it. It's one of the most famous lines from Star Wars. You've seen it in comedies and many different things. And usually you say Luke to put that line into context. And more personally, as a kid, as a Star Wars fan, I used to talk into a box fan. I think just about everybody who grew up in the 80s and 90s did.
La la Luke. Luke, I am your father.
And what was the first thing you said into that box fan? Luke, I am your father. Why did you put Luke in there? Not because you remembered the line from the movie. Well, yeah, but not because you remembered the line from the movie, but because saying I am your father into a box fan is just fucking weird. So I do believe in our mass consciousness of Star Wars fans, we just assume that that line was there because of how many times it's been repeated, and I think that's the explanation to that one. I don't think he ever said, Luke, I am your father. I think it was just, no, I am your father. Because why would Vader have had to say Luke? He's standing right there. You're the only two people.
Because I'm trying to reach someone. Sometimes when I'm talking to someone, I'll say, Wesley, listen to me.
Perhaps.
James Earl Jones even thinks that the line is, Luke, I am your father. Now, why? I understand. He's, again, trying to, you're arguing.
He's putting it into
context. But he's in the middle of an interview.
Yeah.
Where I could have said, when I got to the line, no, I am your father, I thought it had to have been a lie.
Well, perhaps, and that's okay. He could have said that. But then they show the script right before he talks.
But at the script part, it's
Luke,
not line for line.
Line,
though.
Vader, line. But it is the line.
No, it's
he
not
told
the line.
me enough.
It's in that, if you look at it, it doesn't say, no, I am your father. It just says, I am your father.
Okay, so the no was the ad-lib part. Because I don't think he ever said, Luke, I am your father.
Now, some things I do believe that we probably misheard. One of them being Planet of the Apes.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape.
Some of these things I do believe have been misheard. Mr. Rogers, I don't believe was misheard. I believe it's been changed. I still lean very heavily to believing that the line that Darth Vader, but there's other ones with like Forrest Gump that came out a lot. And it was, how many times have we quoted it?
Well,
life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Life is like a box of chocolates goes good on a bumper sticker and goes good on a shirt. Life was like a box of chocolates, which is what he says in the movie because he is quoting his mother, who says the line the way we remember it. Wouldn't make sense on a t-shirt. Because
my mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Why would you speak in the past tense?
Right.
So I just think that's something that we assumed that that's what he said. The line is in the movie, his mom says it, but he doesn't.
But in a documentary, they also show footage of the exact same scene, and in the scene, you hear Tom Hanks clearly say, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So I don't know if maybe the trailer had a different clip than the movie did.
Because when filming a movie, they do multiple takes of every scene. So chances are he could have said 37 different things and one made it into the movie. Something could have been leaked in the trailer or in Cliff Notes or whatever, but maybe he says it that way in the book. It was a book.
Right. One of the things that I caught probably last Halloween was when we were putting together the vampire episode, and I kept referring to Interview with a Vampire. I still do it. That's not the name of the movie or the book today. Maybe some other people remember that. And we do have footage where Anne Rice, it sounds like she says Interview with a Vampire in one.
I wanted Interview with the Vampire to be a departure. I wanted to, first of all, I always thought the vampire was the interesting one.
And
David Geffen, as far as I know, became the real hero of Interview with the Vampire. He decided that he was going to get this thing made and he was going to draw.
And then it sounds like she says Interview with the Vampire in another one. I believe it was changed. Because you even asked our cousin.
Yes, I did. Who's read it many times.
Die-hard Anne Rice.
But I do believe that Interview with the Vampire is a phonetic mistake. The and sound very similar. And that's why you might watch this clip of Anne Rice saying the title. I don't hear I hear the.
There's also footage of David Letterman when he's talking about
the
movie on stage. So a lot of people were obviously confused about the title of this movie.
Yeah, most definitely.
So I'm sure everybody home's like, well, who gives a shit? Mandela Effect. That's all they're doing is they're changing pop culture movie lines. Is that it? If that's all that's going on, you shouldn't have to worry, right? Wrong. You should be concerned because there are also books that we've read, and one of them that kept popping up is Berenstain Bears.
Yes, the Berenstain Bears or the Berenstain Bears.
Now I read these. I was reading these back in the 70s, so I specifically remember the spelling, but also back in the 70s and early 80s, Berenstain Bears used to have like
little
evening, cartoon specials that would come on like CBS or ABC, whatever. And it was spelled with an E, but now there's an A.
Yeah. Well, those could have been misprints, and when it comes to something being strange, I don't find that strange. I think maybe it was a misprint, and then they fixed them, cleaned them up, put it the way it was supposed to be. For me personally, I read them when I was a little kid, and I just think maybe I heard it being mispronounced, and so my adult brain tells me it should be spelled Stein, but I just didn't know that it was being mispronounced back when I was a kid. That would be my interpretation of it. Or it was a screw-up when they started printing it, or it was a mess-up in the TV guide, and that's how it got imprinted in people's head. Typos, aren't that mysterious. But
So if someone does have an old Berenstain Bears
that
book,
would be really
and
great.
it's not changed, would you please take a picture of it and send it to us on our Facebook page? Because I would like to end this argument, because I specifically remember it being the other way, and I believe, again, that this is something that's been changed. Different Strokes was another one that I've seen pictures of a couple times.
Now,
and honestly,
I remember clearly the apostrophe Different Strokes.
Yeah,
I remember that.
So I must never paid attention because I never remembered that on the opening of the show.
Yes, I remember that clearly.
And I should have, on the
Clear as
boxes,
day,
I want to
because
know.
I loved that show.
I should look up footage to see if the opening of the show, to see if that's how they spell it on the show.
I do believe it is.
Because I wonder, maybe the packaging says one thing, but on the show, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I tried that with the VHS.
It was the 80s. They were trying to be hip, They wanted to throw a little bit of jive in there, so it's different.
So I was willing to say, okay, maybe I always pronounce Sex in the City wrong. It's Sex and the City. But I always thought it was
that much attention to it.
Sex in the City. And I watched all this. My wife was into that show, so I watched all the seasons. Well, not all the seasons with her, but Sex in the City. That's what I thought it was, but it's not. So some of these things, maybe we misunderstood. But some of these things, I believe, wholeheartedly have been changed.
Well, some of them I think are easily explainable from Looney Tunes, which we had, Dominant, and then came out Tiny Toon Adventures, and they just wanted to slap an S on the end because we're familiar with Looney Tunes.
Well, it was the tunes part also being spelled differently, and I think people got that one confused. I always do remember Looney Tunes being Looney Tunes. So,
yeah, me too.
But it's like, okay, and then we've seen like lots of advertisements, whether it's Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, or people are remembering logos being different. But
Chuck E. Cheese isn't Chuck E. Cheese, it's Chuck
Chick-fil-A's.
Yeah.
But again, people change marketing so often that I don't know if I would see a huge difference. If like maybe the Pillsbury Doughboy came out and he was yellow instead of white, then maybe I would.
That would be creepy as shit.
Yeah, that would he was always yellow. So
he always laughed like a demon when they poked him in the stomach.
But the other one that really bothered me a lot was the fact that when you look up who the inventor of the cotton gin was, and you see who invented the cotton gin, it puts the cotton gin as a black inventor. I looked it up online. It's in the list of black inventors. Yet the name of the inventor for the cotton gin
look at a picture of Eli Whitley.
He's white. So is that something that got changed? And in one reality he was a black man, in one reality he's a white guy. another one that's brought up a lot is the Kennedy in when he was in Dallas.
How many people were in Kennedy's car?
Yeah, the horrible assassination. There was people that said there were 6 people in the car. There's people that say there's 4 people. They distinctly remember 4 people. And I can tell you, what I find interesting, one of these things I find that's interesting about this is this is stuff that people have said a lot and things that they saw a lot. Because that footage of the Kennedy assassination, as, gory as it was, it's played a lot. There's been a lot of people. And so I'd have to go back and, look at the footage of it or look at the movie or whatever. But now I think there's only 4 people in the car. And people have been saying, where are the other couple people? We've seen this footage enough. Where did the other 2 people go?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then going down, there are passages being changed in the Bible as well. The Christian Bible only.
But we don't know.
As far as we've been seen talked about. Right
now, for all we know, there could be some Jewish people that come out of the woodwork and hey,
the one people are talking about is, the lion will lie down with the lamb, and it's not that, never was that. It's wolf.
Well, yeah, and this one I think is really interesting because if you look up you go into a Christian bookstore or any, Christian painting, there's the lion and there's a lamb. And everybody remembers, and the lion will lay down with the lamb, but now it clearly has always, it's said wolf, and you can't find it. I pulled out my oldest Bible. I thought, well, maybe they changed it and it was translated wrong from the beginning, and it's always been, wolf. But then, why does everybody paint the picture of the lion and the lamb? Why would you not paint the wolf and the lamb?
Perhaps it's visually pleasing. I will say, though, in this quote's defense of how it's said, wolf with lamb. In its defense, when you would write something like this, yes, a lion would eat a lamb. Mm-hmm. But if you're writing this and you raise sheep, and then, there were sheep farmers, David was one, a lion is not your chief concern when it comes to a lamb. A wolf is what you're worried the most about.
Right.
So I think as a metaphor, wolf and lamb makes more sense.
And see, for me, I guess the connection of what I thought was interesting is, in a lot of beliefs, the lion, unless I'm wrong, the lion represents Jesus, in Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Yes. So the lion represents God. The lamb, I've always believed, represented Israel, and the wolf, I thought, has always been referred to as an antichrist or a dark present, a false prophet, something like that. So I thought it was just interesting that now that maybe they didn't want that association, so you put the lion with the lamb, but now the fact that, everybody's paying attention, well, a lot of people are paying attention now, that it's the wolf, it kind of changes the context of what that scripture was. And so it's kind of interesting, but, so your belief is just that this is all...
Well, I think a lot of it is...
what's going on?
Well, I think how I look at this is all of this stuff is in the mass consciousness of society. Mostly American society, at least as far as what we're seeing on YouTube and whatnot. And so I think a lot of it is if you take 4 groups of 1,000 people and you have them play a game of telephone, by the time you're done, you give them a very simple message. Other side is great. Subscribe today. You give them that message. Very simple to remember.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. By the time you're done, one of those groups is going to have it completely wrong. Because that's just how it works when things get, everything we're talking about is very famous, has been around a lot of people have been exposed to it, it's been quoted, it's been put on bumper stickers, t-shirts, but that's what I'm saying, over enough time, another one we didn't even talk about, Silence of the Lambs, when Jodie Foster walks up to the cell, there's a group of people that believe that Hannibal Lecter, even though his character at that point in the story does not know her name, says, "Hello, Clarice."
Good morning. Dr. Lecter, my name is Clarice Starling. May I speak with you?
You're one of Jack Crawford's, aren't you?
Well, that line, "Hello, Clarice," isn't even in that movie.
No, I thought it came in this scene right here.
Right here.
Good evening, Clarice.
Here was where he thought it was.
Where she goes and visits him later, and I was expecting him to say, "Hello, Clarice."
Yes, instead, he says that. I personally believe that line came from Jim Carrey in The Cable Guy.
Silence of the Lambs. Hello, Clarice. It's good to see you again.
When he is pretending to be Hannibal Lecter and he's just goofing around. And I think that that stuck, because even though people want to run down the Cable Guy, this was hot on the heels of Ace Ventura and the other movies he had made. A lot of people saw it, they just don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this is just misremembrance. Now, if I wake up tomorrow and I find out that Columbus sailed in 1494, or that the First Amendment is the right to bear arms, okay, I'm going to get a little concerned and upset.
Now
what do you think is happening?
This is what I wanted, because I started looking up to see any laws that might have been changed, but then it's like, well, guess what? We changed laws in America all the time.
We do, but
Some
the
of
first
them,
10 you're never going to touch.
First 10 you ain't doing shit with, but we try to put on a little amendment, and we do these little things on the side, but it's like, what other documentation? Because from, you're right, everything, it seems to be pop culture, and I think that's why it would be noticed, is because people have been saying it for so often, you think that's the way it's said, and then it's like, no, that's not. Even the fact that people have been putting on Facebook the 10 most quoted lines and stuff like that, it makes me wonder, why is it a big deal now? Well, because of Mandela Effect, but it's like, obviously there are a lot of people that are either hearing things wrong and remembering it wrong, even someone that's seen the damn movie. I've probably seen Empire Strikes Back, which is my absolute favorite movie, more than any movie I freaking own. And I was still misquoting that line. How am I supposed to do my damn job if I can't remember her lines right? So, and when I started doing the research on when the Mandela Effect really started getting posted online, or when people started really looking into Berenstain Bears, I mean, the information flow was I think it's 2008, 2009. It seemed like you started seeing lots of different little what's going on? Something's not right. I don't remember the line being that way. And I'd have to say the project that's gotten the most attention would have to be CERN and what's going on with the Hadron Collider in Switzerland. For those that don't know anything about the Large Hadron Collider, it's cost over $7 billion. There's been, I think over 4,000 or 5,000 different scientists working on this project. And what the original experiment was is they were smashing particles. It's a giant ring. And they're sending the particles around, and they're trying to recreate,
crash them into each other near the speed of light.
So there's
seeing what they produce.
I think there's 7 different areas that take photos of what they see, and they were trying to find the God particle, and they found it in 2012. And they got the scientist, I can't remember his name right now, but they got an award for it. So, they've had some issues at CERN. I know that some people have said, well, they're worshiping other gods and they're trying to open up portals to hell and stuff. I'm not going down that road at all. I don't believe that's what's happening, okay? The Goddess Shiva, and I'm not talking about the Final Fantasy version, well, it's still Shiva, but not the cool looking one, but they got that statue that sits out front as a gift because Shiva represents the god that danced the whole universe into existence. Yeah. So there's scientists from all over the world. It was a gift from India. I don't think that they're looking for, trying to open some portal to hell.
No, they're just researching the smallest things that exist.
So they found the God particle, and now they're searching for. They're doing research on dark matter and dark matter and dark energy, and so they took the collider down for a couple years, and they increased its power. Now, since they've increased the power, which is April of 2015, they fired it up. They've had some weird cloud formations over CERN when they're doing their experiment. Something is going on over at CERN, and I believe that the research they're doing there is leading over to powering the quantum computer. And I think that this going on, and you can hear what's his name, and I watched this interview with Geordie Rose.
This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way.
So if there are multiple universes and multiple
theoretically,
right, realities, then is it possible, again, like I was saying, in this reality, the show's called The Other Side. In another reality, it could be called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And that's what I think happened. I think the experiments that are going on has opened possible realities, and it's changed things. So maybe Anne Rice wanted to call her book Interview with a Vampire, but she changed it the last minute. But because for a long time she was calling it Interview with a Vampire, or I'm sorry, Interview with the Vampire, that's what bled through, and it changed it. And you will not find a book where it says Interview with a Vampire anymore. You can't find the original spelling of the Berenstein Bears because it was changed. And I believe that, you know, when you're messing with particles and you're doing some of the experiments that you're doing, it's possible that they're opening up a different reality. So if it's not that, then there is a new level of mass hysteria going on.
And that's what I was just about to say. The actual explanation, I think, for a lot of this, and this is just my opinion, is mass hysteria. You know, if somebody, it's been proven time and time again, if someone yells loud enough and long enough, they're going to attract the attention of other like-minded people. They're going to say, oh, well, yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. And then you get the worst group that comes on, and they're the group that wants to belong. So they're just going to say, yeah, that is messed up, and they're just going to agree with whatever the hell you want to say.
There are people that are pretty venomous, though.
There are people.
Especially Berenstein Bears.
There are people that are pretty
Bears
venomous.
pisses people off.
But what I'm saying is that's how it works. That's how you get people fired up. Some of them truly think something's weird. You know, and some of them just want to belong, and they're usually the loudest of the group because they don't really think anything's going on, but they gotta fit in, so they're usually the loudest and the most venomous. And as far as the Hadron Collider is going, I don't know what they're doing there. Neither do a lot of people. And so I think that's why a lot of people are scared of it. And now I think for the most part, the scientists aren't even quite sure what results they'll get. They know what they want to find. They know what they're studying. But I don't even think they know exactly what results they'll get. So in conclusion, you can believe what you want to believe. But let's say, for sake of argument, here's food for thought. Let's say I'm wrong, and that all this stuff is actually happening. These things have actually changed. Your memory of how they originally were is correct, and I'm wrong. Well then, logically, I'd have to say that it's being done on purpose. Because why else would you start with seemingly insignificant pop culture references, passages in the Bible, little things that don't really affect the larger world, the larger scale. Why would it only be that's affected? Logically, to me, that would be an intelligent hand behind this. That they're either testing new technology or they're testing out the effects it'll have on the general population, or they're just seeing who's paying attention and who's not. And if it's being done on purpose, then what happens? What are they going to change next? What happens when you wake up tomorrow and Germany won World War II because your personal history has changed?
So if you happen to see any Mandela Effect changes that we didn't cover in this video, if you'd please put them down in our comments. I'm still looking for an old school Berenstein Bear book if you've got one. So that's all we got on Mandela Effect. We'll see you next time. We'll be telling some ghost stories. We'll see you on the other side.
Later.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.